Alright guys, welcome back to Tardis Talk, where we'll run down the latest episode of Doctor Who, give our theories, thoughts and opinions, and point out a few Easter eggs along the way. I'm your host Smack Talks, and I'm joined by the Time Lady known as Miss Revolution, as we get set to talk Series 10, Episode 9, The Empress of Mars. This week seen the Doctor and Bill travel back to Mars 1881 to investigate a hidden message unearthed under Mars's North Pole, reading God Save the Queen, leading to them finding the British Army and an ice warrior by the name of Friday hidden away beneath the surface, searching for his queen. So Elle, in the words of Araxa, female, what do you think?
I actually really enjoyed this episode. I think coming off a third part where I wasn't particularly fussed with its outcome and a few of the issues and things, I think this was a lot more simple, and for one, I really enjoyed it. I think having like two opposing sides where neither of them yet again were particularly good or bad, it was a nice slower pace, and I don't know, I just interacted with it a lot more and really enjoyed myself.
Ooh, see, I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I didn't really like it. Like, the first time I watched it, to be fair, I was a little bit distracted, and I think because of that, I didn't really take it all in. I didn't fully get engrossed in it. But then watching it back, I kind of want to say that I liked it, and I did like it, but I didn't really like it that much. I thought it was alright. It was an okay episode, but everyone seems to talk about the Ice Warriors as being this, like, big alien, like, species from the past, like a massive thing. And it was like, well, if they're coming into it, I kind of expect something big and something grand, like we've had with, like, the Cybermen, the Daleks, everything else. And yet, it didn't really feel like that. Like, every time we see the Ice Warriors now, it seems to be a single one searching for, like, the rest of them. We haven't really got, like, a big Ice Warrior story, and I was hoping this would be what it was, coming across the Queen, and then some kind of all-out war breaking out, but wasn't really anything like that. It just reminded us a lot of the episode, I don't know if you remember it, but The Hungry Earth.
Yeah, I definitely compare it to that, yeah.
So, I know we talked a lot about, like, all the episodes that this season seems to be relating to and just reusing different things. There was quite a few in this one as well. We had Bill sort of falling through the earth and going down into, like, the chamber beneath, which is the same as Amy did when she discovered the aliens underneath. And it was the same kind of thing where they specifically mentioned the Doctor saying, you know, this isn't a case of them invading humanity, this is humanity invading. And it sort of worked out the same in the resolution as well for it. So I kind of felt like it was just another sort of cheap rip-off of that, but I preferred that old episode as opposed to this one.
I can kind of see what you mean, and I think that is a huge thing about the series as a whole. I don't know about you, but like something just isn't connecting very well, whether it's the writing or the fact that we had to wait a year and everything hasn't been as big as the build-up promised and things. Just something doesn't connect, in the fact that there's these episodes that always seem to link back to old ones. It's becoming a bit of, I didn't mind it at first, it was a nice nod to the past, but now it's almost like things need to feel a bit more fresh, and I think that's what they tried to do with the monks, but even then there was a huge similarities in nearly every single episode. So I don't know if it's a case of that or just something isn't. I know I said to you, it feels to me a lot like that Martha Jones series, which I didn't mind, but I wasn't a huge fan in it.
Yeah, it's
a shame because there's been some great moments in this series, but great episodes as a whole are kind of hard to come by so far.
Yeah, it really has. To me, it feels like, I don't know, I get the sense that because Stephen Moffat's leaving, and like, because as you said, we had like so long leading into this, and everyone kind of built it up, and they're saying, we want to give it a year off so we can give you the best season possible to be like a big grand exit. And like, I think because of that, we've all sort of built it up, expecting the full season to just be like one of the best, like most extraordinary seasons that we've ever seen.
Yeah. And
really, it feels more like it's all geared around the sort of finale and how that's going to be, all the Missy stuff. And in order to progress to that, we're getting these little pieces of Missy like scattered throughout the season. And I think it's really hurting us because it feels as though a lot of these episodes are just rehashes of old ones, and I'm finding myself sitting waiting for the little bit with Missy in it just to progress that story. And it just feels like it's starting to hinder it. It's like, just put them all in one episode and just lead into that, go with the finale. If you want to do a big finale like that, spread the full thing out with like one major arc, where these just all seem like individual stories that, aside from the Missy stuff, which could fit into anything, it doesn't feel like it's progressing towards that finale.
Yeah, I totally agree. It kind of feels like, I know that's what Moffat wanted to do. He wanted to go with standalone stories with like an anchor at the end of each episode and things, but I don't know. I think because TV's evolved and shows have evolved, you kind of need that sort of like cliffhanger things. Programs like, for example, like Pretty Little Lies and things like that, they have like entire seasons where stories are still going on and yet you still have the arcs, and that's how it works. But with this, I don't think it works as much having the standalone stories. Now, fair enough, we've got standalone adventures, but I remember the series with Matt Smith's Doctor and Amy and Rory, where you had A Good Man Goes to War and things, and there was a continual arc throughout the series. Fair enough, it was split into two, but it kind of felt like things were amping up. Whereas this, it's kind of like you get that momentum and then it stops and it's a new episode. You get that momentum and it stops again, and it is starting to hinder it a little bit, but like I said, I did enjoy this episode. I don't want to slate it too much, but I definitely feel that something's definitely being missed this season.
Yeah, well, that's exactly how I feel. You mentioned the Matt Smith season. I think that's kind of the perfect way to do it, where you've got something progressing and building towards it throughout. Where I just feel like, you know, we could take any episode from Doctor Who's past and chuck these Missy bits on the end, and that would kind of be how this season's played out. It just feels like they could be tagged on to anything, and there's no overall arc, which is kind of awkward, because you sit there watching it and you think, ooh, what's going to happen next, when there is something that plays out like that. Whereas this, it's like, there's no real, oh, I can't wait for next week, because it's, the story doesn't match the story that you've just seen. It's something completely different. So I think that's where I'm sort of detaching a little bit from it.
I think that's a perfect example as well, the fact that I remember seeing the trailer and it was about Victorians landing on Mars, and we knew that obviously Victorians weren't there, and that was like, what the hell? But I don't think the trailer matched what we watched, and that's happened a few times. I know, like when we were on about the Veritas and things in that episode, and that didn't match up as well. So it kind of feels like the promotion and the publicity totally doesn't match what we're watching every week as well.
Yeah, it's just a weird season. A weird season. Hopefully there's just a big payoff at the end, and then we can forget all the grievances. We'll just work towards that. Let's move on then. Let's talk about the Ice Warriors themselves, as this week's seen that race fully return to the series, leaving them open to reappear in the future. But what did you make of them? What did you make of them, and more importantly, Queen Araxa?
I really love the Queen. I kind of like the whole female dynamic where you've got this Queen and the fact that she relies on Bill's womanly knowledge, or whatever you want to call it, intuition, and she kind of allows Bill to give her input before she goes on her own. I think that was like a really nice touch. It wasn't this whole male bravado Ice Warrior thing, which is basically all we've ever seen and things, so that was nice. I do kind of agree with you that they don't have that sort of like Dalek Cyberman stance that when they've brought these old villains back, they've been really good, but I will say that I kind of get this kind of like royal grand gesture with the Ice Warriors. I don't know if it's with the design or I don't know. I think there's something there, but I don't think they've quite got it in the new Who just yet. They either need to be someone kind of like the Sontarans, where you've got the soldier race and you're going to see like good versions of them and things, or they need some sort of like two-part or something to make them really stand out as a villain.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what sort of I was sort of getting at before. We need that kind of big story that sort of really introduces them and shows them as like the big force that they supposedly are, where just seeing like one or two of them, it doesn't really give that. And when you think of all the other classic villains, classic aliens, we've seemingly got like storylines like that for everything. Sontarans, Daleks, Cybermen, Weeping Angels, everything's had like some big storyline where, I don't know, the Ice Warriors just seem to have been overlooked and just used in one-off stories. So for me, it just feels like they're a bit of a letdown at the minute because of the way that they've been talked about in the past, and it doesn't really come across. Plus, I think this episode, they talked about the fact that they'd been hibernating for 5,000 years and that they'd fought a war on the surface, but it's probably been answered in Classic Who, but for people that's watching New Who and they're not familiar with it didn't really go into detail. It didn't explain why they were hibernating, why they were under there. I think that was something that I would have liked the episode more if I got a little bit of a sort of backstory as to what was going on.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, like, especially people who are new to Doctor Who and things. The Ice Warriors didn't have this like whole anchor point where you kind of knew their backstory and things. I think you could have easily swapped the Ice Warriors in this episode with someone like the Sontarans or the Silurians. It didn't have that like Ice Warrior stamp on, which it probably should have to kind of bring them to the forefront of New Who. Fair enough, we had them in like an episode, I don't know if it was last season or the season before, but even that, it didn't put a huge stamp on the Ice Warriors. So while I did enjoy it, I think they could have done a bit more emphasis on what the Ice Warriors stood for and where they came from and things, just to like give people who are new to them a bit more knowledge.
Yeah, well, I think that's what I was kind of missing from it. I think because I always love sort of an origin story and getting a bit of history about stuff, it always seems to like lend so much more to them characters, and it makes you believe it and sort of get invested in it. And I think with the Ice Warriors, it's something that we haven't got, and that's kind of why I haven't really sort of got into it as much. But I will say, one of the things I did like was the gun that they had. That really sent them packing.
What I will say for I really did like the episode in the Ice Warriors. That was the only thing I didn't like. I don't know, for me, it didn't match what they were kind of representing. They were saying they were these fierce warriors and they were born to be commanders and things. And then you've got this like gun that just folds people up. It was a bit like, it didn't match. Whether or not that's something from the classic era, I don't know, because I don't really remember.
Well, maybe like, I don't know, they've just used this here out of necessity because they felt threatened. Maybe it's just like a household item and they use it for like folding the washing. Maybe that's what it's for.
Yeah, like a vacuum pack or something.
Yeah, how handy would that be? You get it out of the washer, hang it up, let it dry, shoot it. It's all nicely folded.
And I think that's the thing, because they look so grand and things. I think I would have wanted maybe like a Dalek materialization shot or something, just to make them seem that much more powerful and not just pack someone away. It needed that punch in to really solidify them as a villain. But I kind of understand it in one sense, because they weren't really necessarily trying to villainize them in this episode, but it kind of needed a bit more gravity or an anchor for them for me.
Yeah, no, it's weird because, like you say, they weren't trying to really villainize them, even though they kind of did come across that way to begin with. I don't know. Maybe they're just lazy. That's all it is. Every time we see them, they're sleeping, they're hibernating. It's so lazy. Let's talk the resolution then. As things worked out after the Colonel took out Catchlove, who held a knife to the Queen's throat, killing one of his own without tactical advantage in offering his life. With that request, then, the Queen did not judge humanity on the actions of Catchlove, and instead decided to show mercy and have him come work by his side. So what did you make of the resolution for this? I've said it was quite a lot like the previous episode, The Hungry Earth. I felt the resolution-wise, still felt really similar to that. So I didn't really like it. I was hoping for something a bit different rather than them just agreeing to sort of work together. What did you make of it?
See, I really, really liked it, and I love the fact that they touched on desertion and things, because it's something that still happens today, and it still does have like a high price for desertion in the army and things, and it was kind of good to see that fact that it is something that, it didn't touch on that it happens now, but the fact that it's not cowardice, it's just the fact that people have been in wars, they've seen things that they don't agree with, and maybe running away is the best point or thing they can do. And I really like that, and the fact that the Ice Queen, she kind of rectified with that and said she wanted to give him some honour and his death will be on the battlefield, and it kind of got that bravery and on her back, and I thought that was a really, really nice touch, like you say, because it is something that still happens now. And the fact that in the end you had the villain who was blackmailing him all along, he was kind of like the Gaston character, and in the end it was him who deserted his ranks and he was punished for it.
No, that's quite a cool comparison, actually, to Gaston. I like that. I like where you go with that. No, I like the Colonel character. So I like the fact that, you know, she did give him that second chance, and that she did sort of allow him to then gain his honour back and die on the battlefield. So it was kind of cool in that sense. I didn't mind that so much. I think it was just the fact that, you know, they peacefully worked it out, and it didn't really seem to escalate like too much leading into that. It was like a really, really short fight, and then it was kind of all over.
So you just wanted a bloodbath?
Yeah, Well, not so much a bloodbath, like just lots of neatly packed humans. Yeah, so I don't know, overall, it wasn't that bad. It was just, I don't know, I would have preferred something a little bit different. It just felt too similar to The Hungry Earth.
No, I definitely see that similarity, and I don't know if it's because it's kind of the same armor and things as well. Just the look alone is quite similar. So when you've got this sort of episode that does match it, it does seem even more like it.
What did you make of the fact of, the Doctor, again, not kind of getting involved? It seemed to be more down to Bill and humanity to sort of resolve this, which, again, it's something that we've seen throughout the season.
It's definitely something I've noticed a lot more. Like I said last week, the Doctor kind of went about like a maniac. And in this episode, he'd almost like instigated, not necessarily the war, but he said to the humans about that Man Friday wasn't necessarily all he stood for and things. So that kind of made the humans fearful of him. And then when the other Ice Warriors turned up, obviously they were going to be like have the backs up, and even one of them shot them. And it kind of makes you think, is that because of what the Doctor said? And even the fact that it came down to Bill negotiating using the gargantuan to stop the war and things, it was quite interesting. Even like the subtle point about the TARDIS leaving, and there was a line with Missy. It all seems to be leading somewhere. I said last week, I don't know if maybe the Doctor and Missy we're gonna see those lines blend between who's good and who's bad. And I don't know if it's me just picking up on things, but it kind of seemed that this was like another example of maybe it is going that way.
It could be. It's a really good point that you brought up, because you talked about it last week as well. I think it's that line where Missy says last week about the Doctor's version of good. Is that necessarily good? So I think maybe we will see this blur a little bit more. He doesn't seem to be getting involved, which is really weird, because usually the Doctor would be the one sort of leading this, and we'd get the odd episode where he would leave it up to a Clara, like in Kill the Moon, or up to a Bill in this season. Where it seems to be happening so much more, and it's as if he's sort of taking a back seat and he's just observing what's going on and leaving it to them.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It doesn't like I said last week, it doesn't have that kind of Clara feel where Clara's just going with her gut instinct and things. Fair enough, Bill is, but it's almost like the Doctor can't be bothered, or his interest is somewhere else. It doesn't have that same kind of feeling, so it does make me wonder, what is he up to? And once again, like that fine line of what's good, what's the Doctor's version of good, and is it really good?
Yeah, it is. I think that's something that we're all going to get sort of answered, because we've seen him in the past saying, am I a good man? He's questioned it himself. I think this season we're maybe going to find out if he is a good man, and if his version of good is actually good. And I think Missy's going to be one that actually sort of brings that question up, and we do maybe get a bit more of an answer to it. So there we go. That's kind of the resolution. Let's move on though, because in the resolution, we've seen the Doctor send out a message to track the nearest interplanetary system to offer the help to the Ice Warriors, and that message was responded to by Alpha Centauri. So if you're not familiar with Classic Who, that was an alien character that appeared back in the 1970s in an episode called Curse of Peladon, in which Alpha Centauri was a hermaphroditic hexapod with one big eye who acted as an alien delegate for the Galactic Federation. So it's a bit weird. I don't know if you've seen pictures of this. Have you had a Google of it since?
I've definitely had to look, and it is kind of like a strange choice to make, because a lot of people won't know who they are, but I thought it was quite nice, especially because this did have like an older feeling to the episode. So it was a nice touch, and I wish they'd kind of be a bit more gutsy and do things like this a little bit more, kind of like where people have said, we want the Rani. Not everyone's going to know who the Rani is, but if you take that jump, then why not? We can learn about these old characters.
Well, that's the thing. I think whenever you do something like this, then even if it's something that hasn't been in Doctor Who before, people always Google it just to see, ooh, Doctor Who's got a rich past. I wonder if this has been in it before. And that's exactly what I did, because I don't know what it was. I think it might have been, when they had the 50th anniversary and had all sort of the program celebrating it, and they'd go through like all the people that the Doctor's encountered. I'm sure I recognise the name from there. I'm sure it must have been in one of the documentaries covering the Doctor's foes and everyone that he'd kind of encountered. So I recognised it from that, but until I actually looked and seen it, that was kind of the first that I seen when I researched it. So it was cool that they've gone done that and like brought in someone from Doctor Who's past. It makes much more sense than just having it oh, I'll send out the message, and whoever responds. It's a good way to just bring in something and have like a nice little cool nod to the past.
Well, that's the thing, and like you said, we are in this like world now where everything's accessible from the past and we can look things up. So why not? It's a nice touch, and it's always like going back on what's been there before, and it'd be a great way to bring things like this in, because I don't think we have those like comedy monsters no more. Fair enough, we've got Nad Doll, but we don't kind of have those silly aliens like we had when it first came back and we had the little blue men and things. I think we need more characters like that.
No, it is. It's really cool when they do that. Like, if you were watching it sort of back in the day, Classic Who, and you kind of, not only do you get the name Alpha Centauri, but they actually used the original voice actress as well. So I think if you'd seen it back in the day, you'd be like, oh, I remember that. I remember that growing up. That's really cool that they've done that throwback. So I think that's really cool. According to the Doctor Who YouTube channel, there was an interview with Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss, and this is that they sort of just thought, this will be a cool nod if we put this in there. And they thought, if we put it in the script, chances are they'll see it and they'll be like, oh, we're not doing that. There's no point just throwing that in. But now they'll let it go through. And I think it's cool that they did, because it's a really cool nod just to the past and that long, rich history of Doctor Who.
No, I totally agree. Like I've said repeatedly, they need to do more things like this. The audience aren't as thick as they think. A lot of people now, because we've got the internet, can go back and watch older things. So why not just embrace the past? Because if we didn't, we wouldn't be where we are now.
Exactly. That's a good message to send. Embrace the past. Otherwise, we wouldn't be where we are now. So there you go. Let's talk one more thing, though. Let's talk that ending scene, because once again, we're left with a scene involving Missy, like we talked about before. And this time, Missy, inside the TARDIS, not only had asked for help, and rather than just tell him how to do something, she took that opportunity, got inside the TARDIS, and what did she get up to? She took it to Mars and picked up the Doctor. So that was really nice. Well, maybe she's gone good.
I really don't know, and I think this is going to be one of my major problems come the end. We haven't seen enough of Missy, and then there's a lot of rumours that she isn't going to come back next series and things, and I don't think we're going to get full-on Psycho Missy, which I said last week is what I really want.
See, I'm still on the fence with this. I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second. I think it's a case of she has a plan and she's playing along, because it just seems so weird that, she had the opportunity to take the TARDIS, go do anything. She could run away. She can start an empire, whatever she wants to do. She didn't. She picked the Doctor up, and when he says about she'll have to go back in the vault, she didn't really seem to sort of argue with him. She seemed to be happy to do that. So to me, either she has really gone good, or she's got a really good plan, and she's just playing along and playing the Doctor.
I definitely think she's playing the Doctor, and she's playing a very good game. I think, like you said, the fact that she didn't run off kind of makes her more powerful, because I dare say that's what the Doctor would have expected her to do, and the fact that she didn't clearly had some sort of response on his face, and Missy's like, are you really alright and things, and like I said, that can be interpreted any single way. Like I thought maybe that was Missy realising the Doctor isn't necessarily good in his version of good and things. But that could easily be like his reaction to the shock that she turned up to help him. And even the fact, like I said, like the TARDIS turned up to Missy for kind of help to get the Doctor back. It was all kind of odd, and it seems like I don't think it's just Missy in place. I dare say, obviously we know the Master's out there somewhere and he is going to come back. It feels like there's another force at play, and maybe Missy isn't necessarily on the Doctor's side, but she isn't on the side of whoever else is out there.
Yeah. No, it's still strange, because we haven't got too much to go on. We just have to take Missy's word for it at the moment. Well, I'll say though, like all this talk of being good, and is she good? We've mentioned sort of the quote last week about the Doctor's version of good. Do you think there could be a place where Missy is actually good, but she goes up against the Doctor because she doesn't believe that he's good? Because we've obviously got these two different views of what is good. And it's a case of, well, maybe they're both right, but maybe one's righter than the other one.
I definitely think it's possible. And like I've said throughout the series, the Doctor's come kind of close to that line where he hasn't saved someone like the child in Thin Ice. running his boat through the bridge and things in last week's episode, and even kind of stirring the pot and not doing the things that Bill did, I'd kind of say he's already on that path, and because Missy's feeling remorse and things and already starting to change, it just makes you wonder when's that point going to cross, and like you say, when's Missy going to be the one who is more good than the doctors? I don't think it's far off, and I do think it's very possible because the doctor over the years has done things that weren't necessarily good, and we obviously know Missy has done just as bad things. So,
well, what I kind of thought was it would have been cool if, sort of, last week when we had the sort of the conversation with Missy and she told them how to defeat the monks. If they'd been put in the situation where Missy was with the doctor and they're both going up against the monks, and Missy was, I have to kill Bill in order to save the Earth. It'll save the entire planet and the population. And the doctor knows that, but the doctor's, we can't do that, we'll have to look for another way. And then Missy goes ahead and does it anyway. In the face of good, to save that entire planet. And it's like, she is doing the right thing, but then how does the doctor react? I think something like that, if it plays out this season that way, and they're both trying to do things for good, but the doctor's version isn't necessarily the right way to go about it, and Missy just goes ahead and does it, I think that'd be quite cool to see what the kind of fallout is from that.
It definitely, it's that whole thing of, is one life worth the lives of a million people or something like that? And it's a question that neither answer is necessarily good or bad. It just depends on the perception and all the other questions that go with it. And I'd love for them to explore it. I just hope we've got long enough, because we know that there's only a few episodes left now, and I just hope they don't cram them all in, because we've only got these like minute or so segments, and Missy's not in them fully until closer to the end. So I just hope this whole build-up isn't going to fall flat on its ass, kind of like the monks did. Yeah,
I hope it doesn't. I hope it kind of pays off, because like this is the big Moffat finale, so we're expecting something good. We're hoping it pays off. Just please, 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 please don't let me down. I will ask you one more question though before we get into Easter eggs. Do you have any theories about the TARDIS and why it decided to take off?
See, because I've mentioned the good things, the only thing I can think of is maybe the TARDIS didn't perceive the Doctor's actions. It knew what he was going to do, because obviously the TARDIS knows it's been in the time stream and whatever. Maybe the TARDIS didn't acknowledge the Doctor's way of going about on Mars is necessarily good, and maybe the TARDIS had more faith in Missy. That'd be my only inclination, because I don't really understand why else it would go to Missy other than to help.
See, we've had things in the past where the TARDIS has took it upon itself to go off and disappear, and it's usually been something along the lines of, the TARDIS has already been there and it's kind of encountering itself, and it's gone because of that. I can't remember the episode that was in, but that was one of the explanations that we had in the past. But I don't know, I'm just hoping that we get something to kind of explain that. I hope it's not one of these ones where they don't give you the reason as to why it's done that. Surely they will, but I just hope there is some kind of answer, and it's not one of these questions that we're left to answer when Moffat does actually walk away. I hate unanswered questions.
What I will say is, it's something I've totally noticed this series. We've kind of seen multiple locations in every single episode. So, like this week we had NASA and things, which you could have easily gone without seeing that. I dare say we're probably going to see the likes of NASA, and there was the Institute, and there was the library from the monks and things like that. I dare say there's going to be a point where a few of these locations will come back into the finale. Otherwise, it just seems like a lot of attention in some parts are being paid to something that wasn't totally necessary for the plot.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see them. Hopefully we'll see them in a simulation, and it makes sense.
Oh, no, nothing.
Damn simulation episode. Otherwise, I will be raging. There you go then, that's our thoughts on Missy, the Ice Warriors, the story, the resolution, everything else. Let's talk Easter eggs though. We had a portrait of Queen Victoria, but rather than actual Queen Victoria, it was that of Pauline Collins, who played her in the 2006 episode Tooth and Claw. We had Officer Catchlove, who was actually a real Victorian soldier that Mark Gatiss read about in the book Running the Show whilst doing research. Then we also had Gatiss throw in a throwback to the previous Doctor Who episode Sleep No More by having the Ice Queen rallying her troops for the episode's title as they began to awake. week. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, we also had Alpha Centauri voiced by the original voice actor that was played back in the 1970s with voice actor Isan Churchman. So there you go, there's a few little Easter eggs, but let us know if you spotted any more in the comments. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this week's episode of TARDIS Talk, but make sure to get involved and let us know your thoughts on the episode as well as your theories in the comments, as well as following us on Twitter at TARDIS_talk for live reactions, tweet-alongs and more Doctor Who goodness. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode, but I'm off to watch The Terminator, or maybe The Thing. Ooh, The Vikings. Then again, maybe I'll just watch Frozen. Until next time.
Let it go.
Let it go.